recently returned from my 3-year-long posting to the beautiful city of New York, where I headed corporate banking for KBC clients from the Czech Republic, Slovakia, Bulgaria, and Hungary, and also for clients from the US and Canada going to these countries. It was already my second time of living in the US. I was there also 20 years ago, opening the first office of Czech trade in the United States. So I will draw some parallels and perhaps mention a few developments that happened over the past 20 years in banking. So certainly do not be worried about banking as long as you're a client of ours, and this is not a marketing. So even if you're not a client of ours yet, feel free to come and ask questions. Either me or your contact person, Jana Ševčíková, who's here with me today, is your contact for the New York branch of KBC for the whole US market and also Canadian market. So two things that you should come out from this presentation with, and then you can just sit down, relax, and perhaps ask questions, because this doesn't have to be a speech just on my own. If you drop me a LinkedIn message or give me your card, I will be more than happy to send a copy of this presentation to you. It's a marketing presentation, but at the end it has the contact details, and it also has links to webinars that we hold last year for our customers about the US market in terms of legal issues, marketing, visas, etc. Speaking of KBC and what we can do for you in the US, first of all and most importantly, we can open your bank accounts. And in these COVID times, it's important to add that we can do so without you having to travel to the US. So to make it simple, as long as you are a client of ČSOB or KNH in Hungary, KBC in Belgium or elsewhere within the KBC group, all of the foreign branches of KBC are open for you. It can happen parallel to you opening bank accounts in the US, and I'll be speaking about corporate bank accounts. We do not provide retail banking in the US. So that's the only limit that you might run into. For your personal banking, you might still have to go to elsewhere on the banking sector. So apart from banking itself, we also provide and run startup projects with startup companies in our foreign branches. So if you are a startup or scale-up company and you're looking into potentially going to the US market, but perhaps you're not even sure yet if that's the market for you, please give us a call or meet with us. We'll be more than happy to work with you, either run you through our project here in Czech or elsewhere within the group, and then provide you for an office space in New York as soon as it opens, because it's been now unfortunately closed since the middle of March. Our colleagues are still at home office, still not back in the office. But we can provide you with an office space, we can provide you with free banking, we can provide you with some other support, networking, anything else that you might need and might find important at the start of your career in the US. We work with the Czech Consul General in New York on business events, business seminars, but also supporting cultural events as we find them important to be supported by our group. Here you find a list of what we provide in the foreign branches in general, and especially in New York. It may be interesting for you to hear that we do a wide variety of products. We provide a wide variety of products in the US. We do provide financing for acquisitions as well, small, medium, as well as large. You might have read in the newspaper about, in fact, I think Dentons participated in that transaction too, that we financed the largest ever Czech investment in the US in the year of 2018, I think it was, when it was then called Pegas, bought First Quality, now it's called PFN Group, Number One Technologies. So you can find that whatever needs you might have from banking, we can help you with that. Now, what's the big fuss about banking in the US, and why do we say it's different? There are things done differently in the US than what we are used to here in Europe in general. First and foremost, Americans, not just individual people, but companies too, still work with checks. So that's something that you have to consider going or being already in the US. You have to start dealing with checks, whether or not you like it, whether or not you question it. Now, many people ask, why do Americans still use checks as a payment mechanism now in the 21st century? Now, 20 years ago, when I was working for Czech Trade, I thought, by now it would have disappeared, and it's just an old way of paying people or companies or customers. Here, 20 years later, companies as well as individuals still do use checks for tiny amounts below $1, all the way up to quite large amounts. Now, I did some digging and did spend 3 years in New York asking people as well as bankers, experienced bankers, for an answer. There's no clear answer for that. Most of the time I was told it's actually how people and companies have been paying for years in the history, and that sort of prevails. And accept it or not, if you don't accept it, you might lose a customer, so it's really important, I stress it, to be able to work with checks. And then also, and let me use an example that will not touch any of the companies, because I can use my personal example, which sort of explains or shows the situation, how stuck in the way of using checks people are in the US, and we have to accept it. So the bank, my employer paid my kids' tuition, and I'm supposed to, by the contract, I was supposed to pay a certain percentage back. And I, as a banker, expected that our 21st century bank would be able to accept a wire transfer, just immediate one out of a mobile phone or from the computer. So I went to our accountant and said, okay, where do I send the percentage that I'm supposed to send to the employer? And she said, oh, just write me a check. Okay, hold on. So I, as a banker, employee of our banking branch here in New York, have to write a personal check to return money to the bank. And that's how it works. That's exactly what I had to do. And it might sound surprising to us, but again, it's something to accept, not really to question. So, your internet banking or your banking, as it's said here in Europe, in the Czech Republic, it might not provide all the functionalities that you might need in the US. So what we can do, we can open your accounts in New York and have them connected to your internet banking here in the Czech Republic, or we can set up online platform in the US and connect those accounts to that. Either way, you have access 24/7 to those accounts. Here again, you might find time deposits or other types of financing interesting, depending on where you are in terms of your business in the US. We do service all of the banking from New York, but again, our bankers do travel all around the US as well as Canada without a problem. And we rely also on our network of relationship managers here in Europe. Right. Okay, so now in terms of internet banking and wire transfers, there are also some differences between Europe and the US. What we call wire transfers here in Europe, where you do almost an instant payments, and it's transferred within seconds to the beneficiary of your payment. It's done differently. In the US, it's either wire transfer, it's ACH, and it's either done on the same day throughout the day or in the evening when all the payments go through. So it's always good to, when you're negotiating your payment terms with your customers, to be aware of the differences and make sure that you understand how your customer wants to have the payment terms set with you, and so that you can accommodate their needs without a problem. Now, our colleagues in New York are always happy to help. The Czech contact after my departure is the gentleman on the far right, Bill Kavana. And then we have the two Belgian managers running the branch and always able to answer any of your questions or discuss needs that you might have. If you have any questions, I'll be here after the seminar, and I'll also participate at the event in the evening. Thank you for having us.